Hey, my friends, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and we have talked before about how you got a heart language. That's the one that you were raised on, that you think in, that you feel in. But I would argue that you also have a heart currency. And this is whatever money you were raised around. It might sound crass, like, oh, money's gross and it makes me feel icky and that's just for buying stuff and money's not real. But money, it is kind of a big deal because it's the way that we commodify goods and services and the value of our time. It's the way we easily trade between things of different value. And because of that, whether people like money or into economics or not, we all kind of know what a buck is worth, what a pound is worth, what a euro is worth, whatever your currency is. You sort of know what increment will get you how much along the way. But it gets really weird when you go to another country where you don't really understand the currency, and in your brain, you always have to be like, okay, I have to divide it by 4 and then add 2 zeros. And then, I mean, if you're not doing that math perfectly every single time, somebody could cheat you out of a ton of money because it's just confusing. It's not natural. It's not native to you. Likewise, I feel like we are travelers to a foreign country we haven't really visited before when we make a serious effort to understand the Bible and this theme that is all over the teachings of Jesus, all over the Bible in general, and this theme of money, of real value. And consistently throughout the Bible, there are examples of human currency, human value, being compared and contrasted with lasting value, God value, kingdom value stuff. Jesus talks about money stuff, possessions, value, commodity, currency, more than any other topic in the Bible, by my own count. I went through and did the math, except for talking about his father and his father's kingdom. That was his favorite topic, his second most commonly touched on topic. It wasn't like sex or politics or people being nice to one another. This value, it's currency, it's money. So it's a big deal in the Bible, but we are tourists when we go and read the Bible because none of us are Roman in the first century Roman sense. I mean, I know that some of you are literally from Rome and that you listen and you know who you are and you know that I like you. Hi, thanks for listening to the podcast. Additionally, none of us are first century Hebrews. None of us are first century anything. We live 2,000 years apart. Economics has changed. Currency changed. Everything's changed. So we're doing a currency exchange in our brain all the time whenever this subject of value comes up. But in the same way that it'd be really easy to get that exchange wrong or sideways with the math and get cheated out of a whole lot of resources when you're traveling. So if you get it sideways in your brain when you're doing the conversions, reading Bible stories that hold themselves out as having like transcendent, eternal meaning, it'd be really easy to get cheated out of the meaning if you do the math wrong or you end up in a weird place. Now, I'm not saying we're going to do the math perfectly today, but what I want to do is try to get in the ballpark of what kind of actual value we're talking about in this parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25. Because understanding the parable is at least somewhat contingent on having a sense of the magnitude of wealth, the magnitude of investment that the master is putting in the hands of each of these three servants. So real quick, again, the parable of the talents, it's in Matthew chapter 25. It starts in verse 14. It's about this guy who's going on a journey and he brings his servants in and he's going to trust them with some property. And he gives one 5 talents of money, another 2 talents, and another 1 talent, each according to his ability. That's a key detail. So the size of the investment corresponded to the master's evaluation of the skill set of each of these servants. Then he went on his journey, and the man who received the 5 talents turns around, he makes 5 more. The one who received the 2 turns around, makes 2 more. The one who received the 1 kind of goes into panic mode, and he just buries his master's money. The master comes back. He's like, all right, let's see how that went. The guy who got 5 was like, check it out, I got 5 more. And the master's like, awesome, come to my house and share in my joy. And then the one who got the 2 is like, I got 2 more. The master's like, that's also awesome, come to my house, share in my joy. And the one who got the 1 is like, I don't know about your character. You seem kind of shrewd, weird. I don't necessarily know that I trust your character entirely. So I played it safe. I figured you would just want the coin back. I buried it. Here's your 1 coin back with no return. And the master's like, wow. Well, wow. I mean, it's weird to me because if you knew that I am the horrible monster that you say that I am, you would have thought you'd at least like throw it in the bank and get like that 0.3% interest or whatever garbage they give you on checking right now. So you could at least show me that, but you buried it. Wow. Wow. They're just, It almost feels like you're making excuses. All this paraphrases mine. It almost feels like you're making excuses because your behavior doesn't even square with who you say you think I am. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, throw him out. We're done with this guy, and take his resources and reallocate that to somebody who knows what to do with resources. Sounds a little harsh. There's a lot to break down here, but that is the story. As you can see, it's pretty hard to understand the story or to fully grasp the implications of the story if we don't know what we're talking about money-wise, because what the heck is a talent? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this gives me the opportunity to use the Bible that I got when I was a kid, which has very limited resources. For once, I get to flip all the way to the back here, right next to the maps. Yep, there it is. There's a page. It's one page, and it is titled in kind of fancy calligraphy, Tables of Weights and Measures. And I just go right to this, and it's the very first one, biblical unit, talent. The American equivalent, it says, of a talent is 75 pounds. Now, thanks to a little research using books and the internet, I was able to figure out that talent doesn't mean the same thing in every single culture that you look at in the ancient world. As we have talked about a lot in our conversations, there is a compressive effect to history where we see history in dramatic relief with all of its little nuance and details the closer we are to that history. So every one of us could tell the difference between the styles of like 5 years ago and the styles of 1995. And just look at it and be like, oh, well, just look at, I don't know, just the way the genes are. You can tell. Yeah, one's 95 and one's like right now. We can tell the nuanced difference in political language during the Biden era versus the George H.W. Bush era in the early 90s. But you go back a couple thousand years, or the further you go back in general, and the more it all kind of lumps together, and eventually it lumps together so much that you're like, yeah, you know, like Greece and Rome, this is how the things were back then with them. You know how they were with the different hats. It has the fuzz on the top and the helmets and whatnot, and they got the strips of leather and rocks they bang together, you know, Greeks and Romans. It has a compressive effect. So when we talk about talents, we do have to ask the question, okay, which talents? Now, the Babylonian talent looks like it was one of the heavier talents, and this came in somewhere in the maybe low 70s, 72-pound range. A talent in the Old Testament looks like it weighed a little bit more than a Babylonian talent, like in the distant Old Testament. So maybe you're talking like upper 70s. There are a few people who make the case for a Hebrew talent that weighs like almost the body weight of an average person from back then. So like $120 or $130. I don't know. I haven't seen a ton of substantiation for that. And then it looks like the Roman talent would have been the lightest weight of all of the talents, and that maybe came in at 60 pounds or just a touch under that. So let's throw out that crazy heavy version that isn't as substantiated, and we'll kind of land in that 70, 75 pound range. Let's just play it safe, and we'll just go with 65 pounds as kind of a working average between the Babylonian talent, which is way east, and the Roman talent, which is way west. We're talking about things that are halfway between east and west in Jesus' world, so you can kind of see what I'm doing there. There we go, 65. I'm just going to write that down, 65. So we got 65 pounds times 16 ounces in a pound. I'm going to ounces because I know the value of metals better in ounces. So that means one talent would weigh 1,040 ounces. If this is a talent of silver we're talking about, then let's just make that $25. That's about the spot price of silver today, according to appmex.com. And that takes us to about $20,000 modern value for one talent of silver. $26,000 for one talent of silver, if we assume that it was absolutely pure. Okay, I'm writing that down. All right, but now that first guy, he got 5 talents, so that would be 130 grand. All right, so if we assume this is silver and that the silver is pure, then the first guy got $130,000 handed to him and told, like, hey, you should be able to do something with this much money. It takes money to make money, so go make some money with this. That means the second guy got handed what? $52,000 in terms of modern money. Takes money to make money, should be able to make money with that. But what about the poor guy who only got one and who the master wasn't really nice to and didn't trust as much? He still gave him 26 grand. Oh my goodness. It takes money to make money, and 26 grand, like you can make money with 26 grand. It's a ton of money. That's brain melting money to me. But hold on, my friends. Let's just, like, for the sake of the exercise, does it really spell it out for sure that it was silver? Does it say it here that it was silver? I'm not seeing it for sure that it says that it was silver, right? I think I'm assuming that. What if it had been gold? It says money. I don't know. Let's just run it with gold real quick. What did I say that it was? We got 1,040 ounces, and we're going to multiply that by spot price of gold is about $1,980 today. That means a talent of gold, oh my goodness, is $2.06 million. Let's multiply that by 5. Wow, if it was gold, he was giving this guy $10 million. Am I doing that right? That is so much money. That is just bonkers. It takes money to make money, but you should be able to make money with that. I assume it was probably silver, but still, this is mind-melting. But here's another thing about all this. Now you and I are talking about the same thing. We're talking about 65 pounds being one talent of, let's say, silver. Just think about how much it would take to even move that around. There was energy even in the investment. Check this out. I'm going to put the microphone down here. This right here is 1 ounce of, I didn't have an ounce of silver handy. This is an ounce of copper, which is worth like 30 cents, maybe. Okay, ready? Listen to this. That's what that sounds like. You could hear that, right? Okay, that's 1 ounce. Now check this out. I did have a little bit of silver here. This is going to clank a bit, but you're going to be able to hear the weight. This is 1 pound of silver, like actual physical pound. Ready for it? Wait. Ooh, a little more thump to that one, right? That's only 1 pound, though. Like a talent of silver is 65 pounds. That's what we're going with. Okay, I had to go and dig this up for the sake of this exercise. What I have got right here, this is, let me see. This is a 100-ounce thing of metal, and that's 6.25 pounds. Here's what that sounds like. Oh, that's a lot. Like, that takes effort. I can feel that one. All right, now right here, I got a weight from my weight bench. This one's 25 pounds. I think I just about broke my table. I'm going to drop it on the ground so you can hear it better. Oh! Did you hear that? That's only 25 pounds. That's less than half of a talent. So just think about receiving 65 pounds of precious metal, and then your thought with that is like, you know what? I'm going to dig a hole. I'm going to get it down in there. That's your best strategy right there. Just think how much effort it would take to get that even in the ground. That is a lot of investment. And that really is all I wanted to communicate. That's all I wanted to work through with you today. Is we're not talking about a few bucks or a quick loan or something like that. We're talking about really meaningful money. This is a massive investment, a massive gesture of trust. It's also a massive expression of vestedness. That, in effect, is the master paying the highest compliment even to the least qualified of these servants and being like, hey, that kind of weight in value, I'm going to give you a crack with that. Go see what you can do. And that might be intimidating. That might be a little bit scary, but also like, hey, you're in. You're a part of the team here. You have a role to play in my household. And as we talked about before with the language of servant and master and all of that stuff that comes up all over the book of Matthew and the Gospels in general, culturally, everybody who heard that would have been like, dang, that kind of vestedness in a household and a household that good and that benevolent and that lasting, that's like the best that anything could be. So hopefully now we are just that much better positioned to appreciate some of the nuance in Matthew 25 and understand the behavior of the characters a little bit better as we unpack it more. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.